dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. The Democrat-controlled Senate has voted to adjourn the impeachment trial of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on a party line vote. The Senate Majority Leader said moving forward with the trial would have set a dangerous precedent. Republicans accused Democrats of voting to bypass their constitutional duty. CBS's Natalie Brand has the latest from Capitol Hill.
The impeachment trial of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas ended before it began.
The yeas are 51, the nays are 49. The motion is to agree to. The Senate, sitting as a court of impeachment, stands adjourned sine die.
Democrats voted to declare the articles of impeachment unconstitutional.
Impeachment Article 1 does not allege conduct that rises to the level of a high crime or misdemeanor.
Republicans tried to slow things down on the Senate floor with a flurry of procedural requests.
Move that the Senate proceed to closed session.
I move we adjourn this court of impeachment.
Move to table the point of order.
And they chastised Democrats for not holding a full public trial.
This process must not be abused. It must not be short-circuited. History will not judge this moment well.
House Republicans who voted to impeach Mayorkas in February accuse him of breaching public trust and not enforcing immigration laws, leading to a record number of migrants at the southern border.
When I go home and across this country, the voice of the people is very clear. Secure the border and impeach this man, this criminal.
Speaking on CBS Mornings on Wednesday, Secretary Mayorkas said the border is broken because Congress won't do anything to fix it.
We cannot resource ourselves. We need Congress to do so. We cannot change a broken immigration system. Only Congress.
He again called on Congress to pass a border security bill. A bipartisan deal fell apart earlier this year in the face of GOP opposition. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The Department of Homeland Security, a spokesperson in a new statement, said today this proves there was no evidence to justify impeachment and accused congressional Republicans of standing in the way of bipartisan border reforms.
After a few showers earlier today, we are tracking some drier and warmer weather on this Wednesday evening. Up on First Alert Pinpoint Doppler, not much happening, but notice as we zoom out, we are tracking some severe weather today for our friends to the north in Ohio, and this will stay to our north. But if this line begins to develop a little bit further off to the south, we could see maybe a few more showers or maybe a storm over parts of the Big Sandy Valley as we go into your Wednesday night. But again, even there, the threat is pretty low. Some good news, the level 1 risk of severe weather was dropped for our area, but you can see here close to I-64, if that line begins to push off to the south and east a little bit, we could see maybe a strong storm or two as we go into parts of Wednesday night, mainly close to I-64. But for most of us, no weather worries as we go into your Wednesday evening, and those temperatures are once again mild today, up to 75 in Pikeville, 73 in Jackson, and 72 over in London at this hour. And some more mild weather is on tap as we go into this evening. Those temperatures stay in the middle to lower 70s. We are dry under a partly cloudy sky, and some more mainly dry weather is on tap as we go into tonight, and we see some more summer-like weather tomorrow. More details on that Thursday forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thanks. Boeing's safety practices were front and center on Capitol Hill today, with 2 overlapping hearings focused on the airplane manufacturer. Boeing has been under intense scrutiny since a door panel fell off an Alaska Airlines jet mid-flight earlier this year. CBS's Michael George reports from New York.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
At a Senate hearing Wednesday, a Boeing whistleblower testified the company hid problems with the production of its 787 Dreamliner.
Effectively, they are putting out defective airplanes.
Boeing quality engineer Sam Salapur claimed pieces were pushed together with excessive force to make it appear there were no gaps, making the aircraft vulnerable to breaking apart.
I literally saw people jumping on the pieces of the airplane
to get them to align.
Boeing refutes those claims, saying in a statement that extensive and rigorous testing of the fuselage have found zero evidence of airframe fatigue, adding that it's confident in the safety of the 787 Dreamliner. While the FAA is investigating the claims, its oversight of the company is being called into question.
Would it be fair to say that the FAA has been too captive to Boeing?
They absolutely have been too captive to Boeing.
Boeing has come under intense scrutiny since a door panel fell off one of its 737 MAX jets mid-flight earlier this year.
Why did a mechanic install the door and walk away, leaving it in that condition?
At a separate Senate hearing, industry experts described a disconnect between management's messaging about safety and the reality facing factory workers.
They hear safety is our #1 priority. But what they see is that that's only true as long as your production milestones are met. And at that point, it's push it out the door as fast as you can.
Among those testifying, MIT aerospace engineer Javier de Luis, whose sister was killed in the Boeing 737 MAX 8 crash in Ethiopia in 2019. The expert panel issued a report that found despite improvements made after that crash and an earlier crash in 2018, the company's approach to safety remains flawed. Michael George, CBS News.
No Boeing representatives attended today's hearings. A spokesperson says the company is cooperating with the lawmakers' investigation. 7 jurors are now sworn in and seated for former President Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan. Court was not in session today and is expected to resume tomorrow. The jurors include 4 men and 3 women. They will decide if former President Trump falsified business records for payments his former fixer gave to adult film star Stormy Daniels to cover up a reported affair. Trump denies the charges. 5 more jurors and a half-dozen alternates still need to be selected. President Biden is ratcheting up pressure on the Chinese steel industry. It's part of his economic pitch as he swings through battleground Pennsylvania. Today, the president is expected to call on U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai to consider tripling the existing tariff rate on Chinese steel and aluminum. President Biden is also planning to highlight the Department of Commerce's efforts to crack down on China's attempt to flood the market with cheap products. Arizona's House of Representatives failed again to advance a repeal of a Civil War-era abortion ban. Last week, the state Supreme Court reinstated the abortion ban dating back to 1864. If it takes effect, it would be among the most restrictive in the U.S., banning most abortions in the state. Arizona's House is controlled by Republicans, but many of them want to distance themselves from the court's decision because most Americans do not favor full abortion bans. Amid mounting pressure from Republican hardliners, House Speaker Mike Johnson announced he's moving forward with a vote on foreign aid for Ukraine. The Speaker has been facing calls to make tweaks to the foreign aid package proposed this week, but Johnson plans to bring the series of foreign aid bills up for a vote on Saturday. Hardline Republicans are also threatening a motion to vacate, which would boot Johnson from the speakership if it passed. The U.S. Supreme Court is making it easier for people to sue employers for discrimination when they are transferred against their will. Today's unanimous decision sided with a St. Louis police sergeant. Jatanya Claiborne Muldrow claims her department discriminated and retaliated against her when it forced her to transfer out of an intelligence division. She was initially assigned to a division in which she worked weekdays in plain clothes and had an unmarked vehicle. America's debt problem and high interest rates could wreak havoc on the world's financial stability. That's according to the International Monetary Fund. The U.S. government's increasing debt and high interest rates could cause borrowing costs around the world to spike. A spike in yields on U.S. government bonds are associated with surges in government bonds elsewhere. IMF says that puts pressure on global interest rates and pushes up the cost of borrowing worldwide. Former U.S. Senator and Florida Governor Bob Graham has died. Graham spent nearly 4 decades in public service representing Florida. He first served in the state legislature and then in the governor's mansion before going to Washington, D.C. as a U.S. Senator. Graham was known for co-chairing the congressional investigation into the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. He ran an unsuccessful bid for the 2004 Democratic presidential nomination. Graham was 87 years old. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, scammers are always looking to exploit people, including when severe weather causes problems. Tips to know so you can keep from getting scammed when adversity strikes.
And our summer-like forecast will continue for now, but a cooler weekend is on the way. Those details coming up.